Welcome back to Jones and Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones. The first and second episode, oh Christ.
Start again, don't worry. Been there.
All right, starting again. Good evening and welcome back to Jones and Company. I'm your host, Brian Jones, and today I'm joined by both Jevon Butler and Allan Butler on the topic of food security. And so in the first segment that was brought to you by Mino Butler and Sons distributors, as well as Azure Digital, we covered some of the issues relating to food security, some of the problems in putting food on the table, and also the supply chain issues that is basically challenging the entire world. And so, gentlemen, we've identified a lot of the problems, and I think you alluded to some of the solutions.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of those, right? We've been looking at all the different players, right, and who are responsible for food security. We're talking about our farmers. You have manufacturers, and then you also have the whole logistical arm of it, right? Mm-hmm. Distribution and everything that goes along with that, the financial components, the making sure the right items get to the right places. Mm-hmm. So help us understand, how do we bring this all together to ensure that we end up with food security in this nation?
Well,
want to take that, Jevon?
I can start there. I found that, and this is where my cousin and I may differ, I found that successive governments have tried to get agriculture to a certain level, a certain standard. Mm-hmm. The reality is, you can grow as much product as you want. If you don't have the right logistical chain, the right supply chain in place, it's still going to fall on deaf ears. All right. We've seen retailers, including ourselves, who wish to support the local farmers, but it's just the logistics of getting it from Andros, from the boat to your store, getting it from Exuma to the boat to your store, and now you're spending more time outside of your establishment trying to gather and collect this produce, trying to collect this livestock that may have been slaughtered over there, and you're trying to sell it out of your coolers, and dealing with that side of the business instead of actually just selling the product. So personally, I feel if we can figure out the logistical component of the food supply, really creating the right market, all right? We've danced around that market forever. Mm-hmm. Everyone now, the new talking point is cryptocurrency. Before that, you would have talked about the stock exchange, but all of that started from the commodities market. Mm-hmm. You can't run from that. We do not have a proper market in place where the farmer in Exuma or in Andros or in Agua, and the farmer could be here in Nassau, the backyard farmer. Mm-hmm. Smaller scale, but understanding that, hey, the price of tomatoes is going to be X in the month of November. All right, so I'm willing to grow some tomatoes, and I know I'm off-season, Allan, so you can correct me, right? But whatever the price is going to be at that point in time, that future should dictate why I should grow this product. Now, if we have a surplus, what are we doing with those products? We had the days of the canning factories, mm-hmm. and it's no longer where it used to be. So why is it we're not looking to get back into canning on some of the various family islands? There are many Bahamians in our age set, I know you're younger than us, who will tell you the stories of going to Cat Island during the summer and helping mom or granddad in the farm. That was the summer vacation, all right? Mm-hmm. So you help during the day. After that, you spend time with your cousins, your loved ones. You got away from the big city, and it brought you back down to a level of stability and true family life, true island life. We have to get back there. We can't be afraid to get there. The argument has always been, well, we can't grow enough food to sustain ourselves. That's true. When we think of telecommunication, when we first received internet connectivity through your telephone router, for 10 hours it cost $20, and then $2.50 each additional hour. But nowadays you can buy a phone plan, a data phone plan through either carrier, mm-hmm. and you can have that for $20, $30. So as we scale, as more people become involved, as my cousin would always say to me, the cost of change, as more people become involved and more people start getting into farming at a smaller scale, at a medium scale, at a granular scale, and now you have the markets to support that farming. And I envision those markets really having brokers who will act as the point people and say, hey, Mr. Jones, I know you're part of my backyard farming network, all right? I'm going to gather the crops. Mm-hmm. I'm going to carry them to my Butler Mart. I'm going to ensure that there's a place for these to be sold, and I'll be responsible for collecting the cash on your behalf, making sure we're paid. If you can get those middlemen involved, mm-hmm. the lawyer, the doctor, the accountant is more inclined, because you know what? Saturday mornings between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., this individual, this company is coming to collect these items. They have a scale on the back of the trucks. They weigh them. They give me a written receipt that here's what I've collected from you. They then will send funds to me either cutting a check or in some digital form.
Is that how it works in larger, more developed nations?
Well, I'll give you a prime example. In South Florida, Central Florida more so. Central Florida was always known for its orange groves. They had a huge real estate boom, and they realized that they weren't producing sufficient oranges. So you are incentivized as a tax deductible if you are willing to grow citrus trees in your yard, and then people will come and collect the citrus. So people are thinking outside of that box. That's where we need to get. All right. There's nothing wrong with getting into farming, but I'm not going to run around and try to see if I can sell my products at the Products Exchange.
Right.
All right. I think what BAIC is doing with the pop-ups is an excellent idea. But the next step now is to really embrace the business owners, the grocers who've been in this space for a period of time, find that happy medium, and find out how all of us can work together to ensure that the product is getting from the soil onto the shelves, onto your plate at home.
Is part of it also making sure that we're trying to produce or grow the right things? Kind of get in where we fit in what actually works with our soil and environment?
I not so much the soil, so much. Yes, to some degree the soil. But I do remember that a few years back, when they were really trying to get Bamsey off of the ground, one of the products they introduced or started out with was papaya. I'm thinking, papaya? Okay, I know papaya. I've had the fruit. I like it, etc. But it's not a staple here in the Bahamas per se.
Right.
I would have started out with something in the lines of what Bahamians used to cook with on a regular. Sweet peppers, tomatoes, celery, things of that nature. Onions. Those are the type of things that you probably need to be producing or have produced by the farmers, be it backyard or those who are doing it on a larger scale, to be able to begin to get to market those items that you need to get on a regular basis. Then once you see what those demands are and see what the quality is, then you develop a quality control to make sure that there's the same quality of that which they would have had all along, all right? Because you don't need to be bringing something to market and the average consumer is looking at it, this is not as what I got last week. And of course, what you got last week came from United States or came from Central America, all right, via the United States or through the United States. So with that, you need to make sure that your quality is also there on a consistent basis to make sure that you have that product that people will actually be willing to buy and put their monies on. And the other thing is too, we have to make sure we educate our clients or our people on the product that is produced in our nation. For instance, they may see a green colored orange and think that, hey, that orange is not fit to eat right now. Whereas the person may have grown groves of oranges, they just came up with a slight bit of orange color in them, but they're actually terrific and they're sweet, but they're green. So we need to educate our people in terms of the types of oranges that we actually have available in our market. And Bahamians ought not feel as though they are of a lesser quality. The bananas are another prime example. You would tend to get a banana that you would buy in the store, maybe a Dole or Chiquita, that would normally get has this bright yellow color to it. And you assume that all bananas are supposed to be that color. The average Bahamian banana may not have that bright yellow color. It may have a tint of yellow with some black streaks on it. But the eye has been trained by the average Bahamian in the banana. If you see that black, that means it's starting to go bad. But not necessarily so. The black streak tends to just tell you that's where the sugar content is. So you look at our bananas, it tends to be sweeter, more natural. It has none of those extra things inside them that your body does not need. And I think you would cut back on the amount of sicknesses people actually get because you have what we call an organically grown produce item that you otherwise would not get. So those type of things we need to be able to educate our people on those who are actually growing these products and those who are actually selling them to the customers so they can be educated on what it is they're actually getting. They'll be very surprised to know that once they begin to do those things, a lot of these entities will actually come to fruition. The other thing is too, we have a lot of distributors, Milo, Butler and Sons included, who actually have storage spaces for much of the product that is brought here. The government does not have to do this by itself. We can then become stores of product that we actually need. We also have a registry or a book that comes out to tell you how much we actually consume in any given month of the year of any product that we have. So with that, you can actually give a lead time to farmers, tentatively, as to how much is used here in this country, in which months of the year. So that when farmers go out to grow certain products, they have a gauge of what is actually used, maybe increases maybe by additional 5 or 10% if you expect an additional growth in a particular product. And that way then you begin to gauge and begin to see exactly what you're using here on this market on an ongoing basis. And then see exactly how close to that you can actually do. Now bear in mind, our food supply here in the Bahamas is about $1 billion a year. I'm not saying we may be able to cut it all out,
Right.
but let's say we cut it in half.
Yeah.
Or even a quarter.
Well, that's the food bill I was talking about earlier.
$250 million is a great savings for us that we could then use towards other things. If we are producing those items and be able to produce enough to at least to help in the process,
Let me ask a
if not fully eliminate.
What about the manufacturers, and not even the manufacturers, but farmers and manufacturers? Do they have the right incentives or sufficient incentives to produce what we need to be produced and to manufacture what we need to be manufactured?
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
What's missing there?
I would take a crack at that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Allan mentioned the $1 billion food bill.
Yeah.
All right. We've seen in the most recent budget communication, the government is putting funds towards agriculture. All right. You have a minister who comes from a fishing background, so he understands the power of farming and fishing. It's more so fishing. What's missing is that logistical network I mentioned, because there are private entities outside of the Bahamas who are looking to fund farming projects. But why am I going to fund this project if I don't see how initially at a domestic level I'm getting a return? And even if I'm not getting a return, now we're scaling where I can now export this product. $1 billion is a lot of money. Allan mentioned $250 million. Could you imagine that $250 million circulating back into our economy? We always have this discussion. Can you imagine how you as a consumer,
we will
you will feel
We
it.
will definitely feel it.
All right, you as the consumer buying it from the grocer, who may be buying it from the wholesaler, who is buying it from the farmer, and now the farmer is going back and they're paying who they need to pay, their staff and so forth. It would definitely be felt, that trickle effect, right? We have to always think of the dollar that we spend and how that dollar circulates in our economy. Lastly, we have the ability to create proper markets if we treat farming as a byproduct of tourism.
Okay. Yeah.
You now have people moving into Airbnbs. When that tourist comes to the Bahamas, they're renting a vehicle and they're going to the local grocer.
Right.
So instead of them just having the traditional Vegas style experience, they're now having the native experience. So wouldn't it be great if when they go to the grocer they can get, and you have to be very careful because organic, there are a lot of legalities behind it. They can get native grown produce. They can have native grown livestock. They can get some Long Island mutton. They may be able to get some pork that's being grown somewhere off Cowpen Road. If we start doing this now, that indirect spend, because that tourist now is going to feed themselves, right? They may pick up some jams and pick up some teas. That's how we get food sales to where they need to be in a more quicker fashion.